go through what iAcademy is, and I want to quickly share my screen, just give you like a couple minutes intro into who we are. Um, so, uh, so hopefully you can see my screen. So iAcademy was initially built because the resources when I was taking exams were really poor. So postgraduate exams are notoriously quite difficult to do, and the resources are really bad. So when you're in medical school, you're generally taught quite well. You have textbooks and specific curriculum to follow, but once you're a postgrad, you don't have much. So we devised iAcademy, and it's got high yield resources from the beginning to the end. So we've got Duke Elder stuff, ST1 application, part one, all the way to part two, or every step of the way. And these are all very high yield based on past questions, and the explanations are done in a way that you can actually revise from. So everything else out there at the moment doesn't have anything that's particularly updated, and also the explanations are just one-word answers, whereas these are general explanations, mnemonics, grids, mind graphs, mind maps, and stuff like that. So have a look at our resources if it's relevant to yourself, and I'll link a description to our WhatsApp community where you can join for free. In terms of the webinar itself today, you'll see you probably don't have access to your mic or the video just because we have loads of people on the call. So it'd be a bit of a free for all if everyone was able to pitch in. If you have any questions, I'm going to be supporting Haider. So if you just write questions on the chat, as and when he goes through the lecture, I'll handpick a few at the end, and then we can ask Q&A like that. That's how we found it works. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'll hand it over to our maestro for the evening, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Prashant. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining this evening. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll just tell you about what I'm going to talk about. And I think this is a position that a lot of people find themselves in. It's a position I found myself in, and it's the ophthalmology, reapplication. So if you apply and you're unsuccessful, how to make the most of your year out. And I think with it becoming more and more competitive every year, this is a situation that more of us will find ourselves in. So I'm just going to share some pearls of wisdom, hopefully, that you guys can benefit from. And if you've got any questions, then do note them down at the end. We'll go through a Q&A and hopefully answer all of your questions. So a little bit about me to begin with. So I went to King's, I did my medicine. I kind of decided towards the latter end of medical school, I wanted to do ophthalmology. I went on my elective, and then I did the AFP in Southend, and then I started applying for ophthalmology. I didn't get in the first time, so I took an F3 year in which I did a research fellow job, which I'll talk about in a lot more detail later on in this talk. And then I secured a training number on my second attempt in my first choice deanery. So okay, so a little bit about me. Yeah, so I've been doing what many of you have been doing for a long time. So, presenting posters. This is me in medical school. Around the time I decided I wanted to do it, then I graduated. I went on my elective. I came back. Once I was an F1, I was doing, talks on applying to ophthalmology, and then I was unsuccessful, but then I reapplied, and now this is me, very happy now, So I've come full circle, and many of you will be in the same position. Many of you can do the same as well. So in medical school, I kind of realized I didn't really enjoy ward-based medicine and shift work. I decided to pursue ophthalmology towards the latter end, around fourth year, and started to slowly build my portfolio. So things that, presentations, conferences, electives, and Duke Elder. So if we've got any people still in medical school, any medical students amongst the audience today, then these are the things that I'd focus on particularly. And then I had the choice of going, through normal FY1, FY2, or applying for the academic foundation program, which I went for as a tactical choice for a number of reasons. And the main reason being the fact that you get a fully funded PG cert in medical education. and that is extremely high yield when it comes to the portfolio for applying to ophthalmology. So I think if any of you are in the position now where you're thinking of what to do at the end of medical school, I think the AFP's changed. They call it SFP or something now. But if you can find one that's in medical education, you can save 2 or 3 grand on PG Cert and get it fully funded by Health Education England. And I think it will go a long way, not only when you apply for ophthalmology, but even after that, when it comes to consultant jobs and fellowships and things, it's very, very useful. Um, and so in foundation training, I like the AFP, it was 2 to 3 days a week academic during FY2. And then this was another reason for me choosing it because this would give me a lot of time on the side to work on my application because you apply October, the end of October of your FY2 year. That's when the application window opens. So it's important that you have time to dedicate. With a full-time job, it's difficult anyway. So if you're doing like an academic post, then it gives you that kind of leeway to manage your time a bit better. So in my AFP, what else can, for those of you who are at the stage where you could be thinking about doing that, then you can do a medical education project. So mine was designed a curriculum design at the New Anglia Ruskin Medical School in Chelmsford. And then, as I said, you get a fully funded PG cert, and you can later convert that to an FHEA, which stands for a Fellowship of the Higher Education Academy, which is basically an internationally recognized teaching qualification. PG cert is nationally recognized. What else did I do in foundation training? I did an audit because the audit, as many of you might know, has to be within 3 years of the interview date. So, although I'd done one in medical school, it was going to expire. So I did an audit in F1 and F2, and it can be on anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be ophthalmology specific. The one I did was something very simple. It was looking at elderly people who've had falls and been admitted to hospital and looking at their visual acuity and how many of them had had their vision tested on admission. Nice guidelines say anyone with a fall should, but in reality, not many people do. It's a nice quick audit to do, and it's quite relevant. You guys can do that if you want. I attended more conferences. I did a taster week. I sat in clinic theatre sessions to get those 10 sessions signed off. And then as you know, the breakdown of the application. So I applied that year. The breakdown is 20% is the MSRA exam, 50% is the evidence folder, and 30% is the interview itself. Now, I had a look at this and I thought the evidence folder is 50%. That's a massive chunk. So I dedicated the majority of my time and effort into the portfolio. And the MSRA, I'd never done it before. I just heard of it from other people that it's a multi-specialty recruitment assessment. What I'd heard is that it's fairly easy exam. It's easier than your med school finals, and it's kind of just your first hurdle to get an interview. So I kind of put that on the back burner. I maybe didn't prepare for it as thoroughly as I should have done. So this is just a timeline. Roughly every year, it's more or less the same. Your vacancies are published end of October. Your applications open, sometime end of November. And then if you apply to ophthalmology, then you're automatically invited to sit the MSRA. The exam takes place at a Pearson View Centre, the same place you do your driving test, driving theory test, a week in January normally. And the dates are first come, first served. If you pass the MSRA, you're invited to upload your portfolio, and then you're invited to interview. And so each each section has a knock-on effect to the next. And yeah, then offers go out end of March. So my first application cycle, as I said, I had heavy emphasis on portfolio building because I thought this is 50% of the marks, and I underestimated the MSRA. I thought it's a given, you're going to pass it. So I gave myself 2 weeks to prepare for it. And on the side, I was doing lots of interview prep every day because, again, I kind of took it for granted that I would pass this MSRA and make it through. But do bear in mind, even if you scrape the MSRA, that mark is 20% of your cumulative score at the end of the day. So it's still important to do well in it. And then I was faced with disappointment, which I didn't expect. And that's the email I got when I applied the first time. And as you can see, I was 0.3 marks short of an interview. And I specifically remember I mentally was preparing for an interview and I had really good momentum. I built my portfolio very well. And actually, my audit was expiring in that cycle. So it was a good audit as well. I didn't want to have to do it again. And I was devastated. I'd worked so hard for this and I was more disappointed in myself for maybe not being as thorough as I could have done. And then dealing with setback, I think it takes time to process. So I gave myself a month off just to collect my thoughts, not think too much about what I'm going to do, try not to worry about things, to reflect. I learned not to blame the system. Initially you're saying, it's natural to think, oh, the cutoff, it's not fair, why is the MSRA used? But it is what it is. You can't blame the system and you have to reflect. And the sooner you're able to do that, then you can improve for the next cycle and maintain self-belief. If you doubt yourself, it's going to be a bigger hill to climb the next year. And be patient. You will be rewarded for your hard work. And a lot of people, they don't get in on their first, second, or even third attempt. But if it's what you want to do, I'd highly advise that you keep trying. And I'll go through some options next, in the next few slides and what you can do. But one word of advice, if I was to tell you one word for your year out, if you don't get in, it's mentality. Just try and keep mentally focused, mentally strong. Don't doubt yourself. And remember, everyone who gets in is just like you and I. They're just done the right things at the right time. So, what are your options if you do have to take an F3? So, I think there's seven main options here. You can apply for a clinical teaching fellow or a junior clinical fellow post. Now, there's three that I'm aware of in London. There's the one at the Royal Free, there's one at the Royal London, and there's one at St Mary's. The year I applied, actually, it was COVID year, so the Royal London one didn't exist that particular year, but it's back up and running now. And the way these work is you have mostly teaching duties. So you're helping to set up OSCEs, you're helping with medical curriculum, but you have 1 day a week for clinical activities of your choice in any specialty. And that will probably be, if you choose ophthalmology, sitting in a clinic, maybe attending a theatre now and again. And I'll go through the pros and cons of all of these jobs and all of these options as I go on. Number two, you could do a research fellow job. Now, some of these are paid, some of these are unpaid. Personally, I think they're quite high yield. And again, I'll talk about how you can look for these. But Moorfield is a good place to look for in London. Have lots of these kind of opportunities, and even any hospital that's affiliated with a medical school, King's, Imperial, these medical schools have hospitals that have a high academic output, and it's good to kind of hunt around there. Then you could do an MSc or a higher degree. A lot of people go to do the UCL Masters in Ophthalmology. That's another option. If you can't find employment, you could locum. However, that's, as you know, drying up a bit. You could travel, do some charity work. You could go for a backup specialty, which I think is a very wise thing to do. And it's something I did. I applied for psychiatry as a backup purely because it's something else I found vaguely interesting in medical school. And I thought, it's not too intensive. If I don't get ophthalmology and I get psychiatry, then I'll take that and I'll just keep reapplying every year until I get in. And at least that way, you have secure employment and income. Then you could do a lat post. So lat is a lateral entry post. Lateral access to training, I think it stands for. And you could reapply. Now, there's not many of these knocking about. It really depends on trainees leaving the training program for mat leave or dropping out of training or whatever reason. And then that opens up a slot in a particular deanery somewhere in the country. And again, I'll talk about those a bit later. Yeah, so I'll go through pros and cons of each of these. So teaching fellow job, pros are it's a secure contract. You don't have to worry about shifts like in locum, picking up shifts and finding availability. You often get a funded PG cert or a PG dip in medical education alongside, and you get time allocated to do this, which is, I think, great. I mean, even if it's not funded, I would highly recommend all of you to do a PG cert because I think it's very useful. Um, yeah, you get weekly ophthalmology experience, which will give you a good opportunity to get involved in things for your portfolio, projects, research, things like that. And you get a lot of teaching experience. They've made the teaching section of the portfolio more difficult as years have gone on. And, for example, before you used to get more points for a textbook chapter because everyone's doing it. It's a bit more hard now. They look at the citations of your book that you've published in, and you can't do a Kindle book, for example, has to be a hard copy and things like that. So if you're involved in a teaching institution, then there's far more opportunities. It opens up a lot of doors for you. The cons are it's a minimum pay bracket. It's often a supernumerary job. But I mean, then again, it's temporary, so it doesn't really matter about money. It's 27 days of annual leave, which can be a bit problematic when it comes to dedicating time to MSRA and interview preparation because you really want to give yourself, if this is your second or third time applying, you want to give yourself maximum time because that's basically the backbone of your year, the MSRA and the interview. As long as you ace those, you should be okay. But yeah, that's the only downside. Another downside, 27 days of leave, so you have to kind of navigate that. And I mean, there's no real benefit for the portfolio for doing this post. Like, it doesn't matter. They don't really ask what you did in your year out, and no one's going to see that you did a teaching fellow post in ophthalmology, and there's no points for it. So you might get a discretionary point, but there's no like hard evidence of points for it. So that's something to consider. Research fellow. So pros, very good research output. Um, Academic units are constantly publishing work and they've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline. They've got a lot of fellows and PhD students. So you can speak to a professor or a consultant, and often they will put you in touch with one of their students and or trainees, and then you can work with them. You can actually get a fair few papers. That's something I did. I'll talk about this a bit later on, but you can get a decent amount of papers in a short space of time. So therefore, it's a very high yield job potentially, and it's easy to get time off because it's a lot more time. The contract is often quite flexible. Cons are very low pay, sometimes even unpaid. So you'll have to do something on the side. It's tedious work sometimes, and sometimes if you are working at a unit where you're doing a more long-winded project and it's not ready in time, then you might not even get any points for it. But I think that's worth having a discussion with your supervisor beforehand before committing to a job like this. There's no clinical work. I mean, it depends if that matters to you. It didn't really matter to me, but if you want to be doing clinical work in your year out, then that's something to consider. You could do a higher degree, a master's, like I said. I mean, pros, it's an additional qualification. You can get points for future application. Important to note that you won't get points for that cycle because you have to have the official degree certificate to hand, and that won't be until you've graduated and until the next summer. So if you don't have any immediate plans to apply, then you could do a higher degree, like a PhD or a master's. And yeah, it's added experience at the end of the day. Cons, yeah, can't be used for the next application. It's expensive. You have to fund it yourself. You don't get paid during that year. I mean, you could locum on the side. And it's not that high yield in terms of points. I mean, I think for additional degrees, for a PhD, yeah, I think you get 4 points, but for everything else, it's like a point. So is it really worth it? Personally, I would say no, but each to their own. Locoming, I think this was and still is a great option because you have flexibility. You get very good pay if you do 2 to 3 days a week. That you don't need to do any more, and you can spend the rest of your time just dedicating it towards your application, your MSRA, your interview. Um, the cons are, I mean, nowadays locum work has really dried up. It's an unpredictable job market. Um, it's there's lack of locum work available, and because when those shifts are available now, it's often A&E shift work, so it's unsocial hours, so that gives you less time to kind of focus on your application. You could travel, new experience, good way to refresh and reset. Plenty of time to prepare for your interview and MSRA. However, you need to be here for the exam and the interview, so that's something to consider. And again, it's a low yield option for portfolio. Probably won't get many opportunities to build it if your portfolio is deficient and in your year out you want to boost it, then this option is probably a bit low yield. and it's expensive to fund a year out as well. You could start another specialty, like I said, and I think that's a great option. I've kind of touched on that already. Um, there's no restrictions on applying. You can do GP training, psych, IMT, whatever you want. You can apply to whatever you want every year. No one's going to stop you. So I think that's a good option if you want security. Um, and a lap post. Lap posts are again there. We don't know how many there are every year, and you really have to ask around. And the best way to do this is to email deaneries directly. Email, you can find out who the college tutors are for various deaneries. Or if you know people, you can ask around, email them directly and inquire if they have any posts available. Something I did, I emailed a lot of different deaneries. There was actually a lap post available in the east of England in Colchester, which I thought about, but actually I didn't take it in the end, and I explain why. Um, but yeah, if you do take one, if you're lucky enough to find one, you decide to do it, and it's close to home, then you can get signed off for things which will count for your portfolio when you do get in, hopefully. It's basically an unofficial ST post. You do the same stuff as a trainee. Um, Therefore, it's very high yield, but it's not a real training post. You have to reapply in the next cycle. And the location could be anywhere. And there's no guarantee that there'll even be a lap post available. So remember, everyone who gets in is just like you and I. There's nothing special. They've just played the system right. They've done the right things, and um, that's all you have to do. Be smart with your time. And what did I do? So I had to think about this, and I thought my deficiencies were the MSRA and a lack of publication. So even if I had passed the MSRA that year, I only had one publication. It wasn't even in a peer review journal. So I probably would have got zero in that section of the portfolio. So I thought this is what I have to focus on. So I contacted several units, several consultants. I didn't get a response from many, but I got a response from one who was extremely helpful at the Western Eye. And they said that, I was very honest. I said, I applied, and I also applied for some JCF posts, but then I decided not to go ahead with them. So I had a chat with, one of the consultants and one of the professors, and I explained that I was unsuccessful in my first application. I have 6 months until I have to submit my next portfolio, and I'm deficient in publications. Can you help me out? And they were extremely helpful and very forthcoming. And basically, there was a lot of publications that were in the pipeline and that she'd been invited to write. So she allowed me to help with those, take a lead on some of them, and it really, really helped me out. So it was basically a research fellow post at the Western Eye, affiliated with the ICORG, the Imperial College Ophthalmology Research Group. It was an unpaid job with a flexible work schedule, which basically means I could essentially go in and out when I wanted. So I used to go in 1 to 2 days a week, work, just work on the papers that I was helping with. There's guaranteed output in 6 months, which was very important for me to consider before agreeing to something unpaid. And then on the side, I locumed in A&E or medicine 3 to 4 days a week. And closer to the time of the MSRA and the interview, I took time off. I blocked off 2 or 3 weeks, and I just did solid prep. And yeah, the outcome was 5 publications, a textbook chapter, a research grant application. I got my PG Cert official certificate. Even though I'd done a PG Cert in F2, I didn't have the actual degree certificate because that came out a bit later. So it didn't actually count. It wouldn't have counted for points if I'd applied first time. So now I could use the certificate, and I gained some further teaching experience for my portfolio because I was at Imperial. So there was a lot of opportunities to kind of, examine OSCEs and that kind of stuff. Okay, so how did I manage my time? I took 2 weeks off before the MSRA. I did daily prep, multiple question banks this time. The first time I just did one question bank, and this time I did a couple. I mean, when I applied, the only two that were really available were MCQ Bank and Past Medicine. I did both of them multiple times over, repeated the ones I got wrong until I depleted the bank. And I know iAcademy have a great one as well. So if I was to apply again, I'd do that one as well. And then I took 2 weeks off before the interview, daily prep, pair up with someone, or I'd pair up with one person personally. You can do group work as well, but I think one person just solid prep every day, go through everything that could possibly come up. It's knowledge based at FY2 level, so it's something that you would have seen in your day-to-day life as a doctor, but it's often got an ophthalmic manifestation. For example, explaining the side effects of steroids to a patient with Bell's palsy or something like that. Or, there's two stations in the interview. There's a comm station. There used to be one when I applied, but there's two now. There's a comm station, and there's a which is either breaking bad news or dealing with an unhappy patient. And then the second station is clinical knowledge, um, which is kind of FY2 level with a bit of ophthalmology. And as I explained a bit earlier, my audit had expired. And I was really happy with that audit. So what did I do? I just performed a new audit cycle of the same audit. Um, so you can do that if you're in that position, rather than starting a brand new audit from scratch, just do a new audit cycle, you'll be good to go. Hard work pays off, and I got my offer in my first choice deanery, South London, which I was very happy with, and my first choice hospital as well. I never really left King's. It's been really nice training there. And so I got my first choice job. I got a portfolio score of 43 out of 50 and a top 20 national ranking, which I was very happy with. I'm just going to quickly whiz through my portfolio because I think it'd be quite helpful just to show you guys layout and kind of things that I would suggest. So yeah, qualifications, that's fine. Prize and awards, yeah. So research grant application, it sounds difficult, but really it's not that hard to get one. Speak to academics, professors or consultants who are academically involved, and often they'll have a lot of grant applications that they're currently applying for, writing. And if you say that you need one, you need to be involved, then you can help with one. You can write it. Of course, they're going to proofread it and make sure everything's good before they send it off. But if that then gets accepted, then you can put that in your portfolio and it actually looks very impressive. And then, yeah, this is the commitment section. As you know, just attend conferences, um, get an elective done in ophthalmology. Doesn't matter how long it is, as long as the letter says elective in ophthalmology, then and you've highlighted it, then that's fine. And non-peer-reviewed publications, there's the the conference, EVER, European Vision and Eye Research, which they publish the abstract of any accepted poster in ACTA Ophthalmologica, which is a good journal. That will give you a non-peer-reviewed publication, so you can kill several birds with one stone there. You can attend the conference, you can present at it, and you can get something published. ISI, you know about that, minimum 4 hours. Audit, yeah. So audit, I was going to talk about because I think very, very important. And if you're taking a year out and maybe you want to improve your audit, then you need to make sure that you've led it and you've closed the loop. You've delivered interventions. It's been presented. Doesn't have to be presented nationally, internationally, doesn't really matter. As long as it's presented anywhere, even at local department teaching is good enough. The abstract has to have been published somewhere, and there should be sustainable changes made or at least recommended as per NICE guidelines. And if you've got all of those things, you'll get full marks in the audit section. And that's personally the way I'd lay it out on the contents page. So I did a contents page for every section of my portfolio just to make it easier, because the examiners are reading hundreds of these every day and you want to make their life easy, make sure they don't miss anything. So if you've laid everything out neatly in a contents page and it's succinct, then they won't have to sift through lots of PDF documents. Publications, yeah, that's fine. Presentations, and yeah, education and teaching section. So formal role undergrad in examining undergraduates. So you can be an OSCE examiner, you can sign up to be one. You can do this as soon as you've graduated. If you've done a PG cert, then even better. It's really easy to do that sometimes alongside your PG cert, wherever you're doing it. So these are some of the things you can put in. I'd really recommend the Train the Trainers course. The Royal College does one. There's quite a few knocking around, so have a look. And yeah, practical advice, don't be put off by the competition ratios. We have about 16 to 1700 applications for about 80 jobs, but that sounds daunting, but really it's not that bad because remember, you can apply to anything, and a lot of people are applying to multiple things just because they can, because they want to maximize their chances in different specialties. The number of people of those 1,700 applying to ophthalmology who genuinely want to do it and have a competitive portfolio is maybe it's a lot less than that. So that already reduces the competition ratio. So um, yeah, I think don't be put off. Like I said, everyone is just like you and I. Start planning ahead, and don't worry if it takes you more than one go. I think you'll be you should stick to it if it's something that you want to do. I think it's one of the best specialties you can do in medicine at the moment, even in the future and years to come. So thank you. We'll do a Q&A. So if anyone's got questions, pop them in the chat. Um, there's my email. Feel free to drop me an email if you've got any questions at all. My Instagram is there as well. You can drop me a message on there. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I offer one-to-one coaching for portfolio and for interview. And I do Q&A if you just want to ask me questions about the job or anything you want to consider that you can't find online, then that's on MedCoach. So you can take a photo of that slide if you'd like. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Haider. So we're going to just see if anyone has any questions. Let's go on to the chat. So if anyone's got any questions, you can ask on the chat. I'm just conscious that if I unmute everyone, it might be a bit tricky. So we'll start off like that. And if there isn't that many questions, then we can open it up and people can kind of ask. So the first question Yasmin's asking is, will a recording be available? Yes, there will be. So it will be up on our YouTube channel. So I would say that the best way to keep in touch with us would be the WhatsApp group, which I posted on. So if you join that, then all of our updates are on there whenever we have any seminars, any new products in terms of question banks, courses, and stuff on YouTube. Um, okay, so someone's asked Hydra that for the MSRA, tips on coming up with a good audit. What's the name of the conference where you published the abstract?
Okay, I can see that. So how long to prep for the MSRA? I'd give yourself 4 to 6 weeks. Between 4 and 6 weeks. Tips on coming up with a good audit. So an audit is basically something that you've done that's compared to a gold standard. So look at NICE guidelines, look at college guidelines, and find something in your department or somewhere that you want to compare to that. And that's a good way. It doesn't have to be ophthalmology specific, but base it on a guideline. What's the name of the conference? It's EVER, EVER, which is the European Vision and Eye Research.
Okay, and then I'm just going down. We might not be able to answer all of these questions, but we'll go through a couple, so don't worry about it. Someone wants to just look at your last slide.
Yeah, sure. No
Feel
problem.
free to kind of
Yeah.
share that. And like I said, the video will be up as soon as we can. So someone is asking for okay, any tips on publication points?
Tips on publication points. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first thing I would do is attach yourself to an ophthalmology department. So keep showing your face, and eventually, once they kind of know who you are and that you're interested, they'll trust you more. And just ask if there's any projects going around. And someone will give you something. It will take a while. You might have to ask around, but eventually you'll come up with something. So you'll find someone who'll give you something to do, and then it kind of is a domino effect from there. So you do one thing, you can publish that, and then you often find another project after that. I think publication is probably the hardest thing in the whole portfolio section because you can do other things fairly easily. You can sign up to these courses and things, but publications show kind of longevity of your motivation. So just ask around and be persistent. That's what I'd advise.
Okay. And then a couple of other questions that you've already actually answered. Another person has asked, as a slightly different question, tips on studying the Part 1 exam, FRC Part 1, before the application.
The part one exam, I honestly just questions. I think you could read some books just for background knowledge, um, which, I'd recommend Elkington's for optics because it's something we've never done before in medical school. But the rest, just pattern recognition. The Eye Academy question bank is fantastic, and there's other ones as well. But yeah, I would do
Yeah.
questions, lots of questions.
Yeah, and someone else has similarly asked about part one and refraction. So I'd say in terms of exams, exams are quite labor intensive, so they take up a lot of time to prepare for. So if you've ticked off all of the other parts of the portfolio, then definitely go and sit the exam. And obviously, I'm biased. Eye Academy's far above the rest in terms of its content and past questions. But at the same time, it takes like a good solid 3 4 months, maybe 5 months to prepare for it. So in that time, if you're going to invest all the time for an exam, you may get 2 3 points, whatever the points that might be worth. But in that time, you can still make up a lot more points, um, and even compensate for a lack of the exam. So in my year group, it was about 50% hadn't taken the exam before they got a training post, and 50% did. So it's not a be all end all, even to get a training post in a slightly competitive deanery. Um, so that would be that. Let's see what other questions there are. Okay, so any advice on someone who decide to do ophthalmology a lot later in their training? So, in the FY3 year, for example, so they're coming
Um,
to late start.
Yeah, I would say give yourself a couple of years, at least 1 year, to solidly work on the portfolio, and just go through it bit by bit. Start systematically. Remember, a lot of the stuff in the portfolio, apart from one section, which is the commitment to specialty, all the rest of it is transferable. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be ophthalmology related. So um, you might actually find that you have a lot of points already fulfilled from other projects that you've done over the years. So see what you do have, and then look at what you don't, and then just slowly work through that bit by bit. And you'll get there eventually. I think you might need a year. I know someone who decided quite late, and in a year they managed to get an offer. So you might just need a year. But yeah, be prepared maybe a year, 2 years. But if it's something you want to do, then go for it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how late you decide you want to do it, as long as it's a tick box exercise essentially. So and they tell you exactly what you get points for and how many points you get. So that's why it makes it a bit